With all the housekeeping done, I want to turn it over to President Chuck Lindsay for the college update. President Lindsay.
Thanks, Sydney. It's great to join everyone this evening. I think we have a pretty robust crowd from what I understand. So what I'd like to do is just give you an overview of everything going on at the college, which is really quite a bit these days. And then I think at the end, we're going to have a little bit of an opportunity for Q&A. We have a number of reasons to celebrate on campus, and that's because we're in the second year of our strategic plan, the 2023-28 strategic plan, and some of the initiatives that we've implemented are starting to pay off. So probably many of you have heard the news that we're doing very well in terms of admissions and enrollment. Overall, the college's enrollment is up by more than 100 students, which to us as a tuition-driven institution is a significant change. And you might say, well, why did that happen? How did you get more than 100 students? And by the way, that makes the total enrollment at the institution officially, as of our census date, 786 students. It's really the effort of a number of people on campus from different departments who coordinated on making sure that we were telling the stories of why Elmira College makes a difference in the life of students. And we have a new vice president of enrollment management. His name is Dennis Kelly, and he had a philosophy, and that's we have to tell the stories, and we have to remove the roadblocks, that the impediments, the unnecessary impediments to someone deciding to enroll at Elmira College. And so he provided education and training to a number of people across campus. He worked with the advancement team. He worked with athletics. He worked with communications and marketing. And I think that speaks to the fact that it really was a group effort. Everyone was focused on communicating what the difference is that Elmira College can make to students. And it really paid off in terms of students deciding to come. Now, if you're an astute consumer of higher education information, you would immediately say, well, there must be some trick involved there. You should ask a question about what happened to the quality of students and how much financial aid are you using to get those students in the door? Because if you're not aware, the marketplace for higher education is extremely competitive. Now, that does not apply to the Harvards and Yales of the world, but 95% of all institutions really are in a serious competition for students. And that's because there's fewer students to go around these days, and also because people have become more skeptical about the value of a college degree. So it's an uphill battle for many colleges and a tough sell. So one way that you can make your numbers grow, but not your revenue, is simply to give away financial aid. And so you'll have lots of students walk in the door, but you may even lose revenue. And I'm happy to report that our financial aid budget is actually 2 percentage points below what it was last year. There's a number called the discount rate. And so we are 2 percentage points below what our discount rate was for last year. So we didn't give away the store. Another statistic is, well, what quality, what kind of academic credentials do the students bring in? The average grade point average in high school that students have in this class is 3.3, which is basically the equivalent of what was the case last year, a B+ average. So we're really thrilled by the quality of students and the fact that they've lent a lot of new vibrancy and energy to campus. So the news on enrollment is all very good. And a second area that we have to celebrate is fundraising. Sydney's department under the leadership of Paula Lee, exceeded their goal for last year by 27%. And it was, again, really a joint effort, a group effort. I think that we have a much more professional approach to fundraising. Jana and I were able to get out there and connect with a lot more alum and have meaningful connections to find out why they care about Elmira College and what is it that they have a passion about and are willing to support on campus to make a difference. So we have a goal for this year for fundraising that is more than last year, because if we did well last year, we're going to do even better this year. Isn't that right, Sydney? And so the goal is to raise $1.7 million in unrestricted gifts that will impact the institution's operating budget. We're also looking for other gifts for bequests that someone might leave money in their will, but we're focused on gifts that people can make to the operating budget to particular programs that they care about or particular projects. And I'll mention some of those in just a few minutes. We've enhanced the staffing in fundraising. We have 2 major gift officers who are 100% remote. They're on the road, they're visiting with alum, they're connecting with them and getting to know them. And I think that's going to expand our reach and help us to be successful this year. We've also stepped up the number of trips that all of us are making. We have had some regional alumni events. First one that Jana and I attended was in Saratoga Springs, New York. We didn't bet on the ponies, but we had a great time with the alum. That was in late August. We've also visited Maine at Susan Thomas's house. We then were in Worcester, Massachusetts at another alumni gathering. And then we took a breather for a little bit. I will be headed up to Buffalo in a little over a week. Early next week, we'll be going to New York City for a gathering with Tommy Hilfiger for alumni. And then there are future events planned, where dates are not necessarily set yet, but we're planning to go to Pittsburgh, North Carolina, and to Florida. So it's really about getting out there and finding what you all think and what gets you excited about Elmira College. So again, a second area that we can celebrate. And it really is due to your support for the institution. So a big thank you to people out there. A third thing that's happened is we have a brand new artificial turf field that we cut the ribbon on just about 2 weeks ago and has really given a shot in the arm to the student life programs and athletic programs on campus. I think one of the things alum really care about is that we are bringing back men's and women's lacrosse. You may remember that we discontinued them several years ago because we couldn't be competitive, that lacrosse players expect to play on artificial turf. We're now in the market, and we think we can be competitive in the Empire 8 Conference. And so we will be playing men's and women's lacrosse shortly, and men's and women's soccer and women's field hockey all on the field. But the exciting thing is the field is not just about our sports program. It's about student life activities. So one of the fun things, I guess, that students are involved with now is an intramural sports program that has been nicknamed the Lindsay Games after yours truly. And it's athletes, non-athletes, they get together, they have fun. 2 nights ago, Jan and I walked over to the turf field, and there were more than 100 students on the field who were playing flag football, and maybe 60 or 70 students in the stands. And that kind of activity and excitement on campus is just something that we haven't seen in a while. And I really think it's taken this generation of students a while to find their way out of the COVID malaise, but it's finally happening. And so we're excited about it. There's other people on campus that are also contributing to student life opportunities. Paula Lee Hobson, Vice President of Advancement, has started a tradition of tailgating around soccer games. And we found out that tailgating was happening anyway. We just didn't know about it. There were unofficial tailgating events going on. Well, we've now brought it out into the open, and I think they're a very successful event that get alum back to campus and an opportunity to connect with each other. Another fun event recently that's going to be repeated is Pictures with Professors. And that's a number of faculty members who sponsored a beer party in the campus center for students who are of age. I understand there were about 40 students who showed up, and that's another way to just have fun on campus. So you've got those kinds of activities going on, which I really think have lent a lot to what's happening. So to get back to the strategic plan and not just talk about the fun social stuff, you may recall that in the last year, we've added a number of academic programs, concentrations, minors, majors. We announced last spring that we're introducing a Bachelor of Science in Social Work. Is something that is very popular. A Bachelor of Science in Criminal Science, and we'll very shortly be unveiling a crime scene house. We have a house that will be dedicated to a crime scene. That we can talk later. And we also are now offering concentrations in digital marketing, esports and gaming, and a new concentration with the Tommy Hilfiger program in as a fashion business generalist. And then also cybersecurity and a social justice minor. Now you're going to notice a pattern there, and that's that our new brand is about providing students with a foundation in the liberal arts so that they can really learn to reason, to write well, to speak well, to have those basic competencies so that they are an educated citizen, the traditional role of higher education. But beyond that, students today are much more interested in practical professional skills and hands-on learning. And that's why we're going in the direction of the things that I just mentioned. An area that we know we can improve on is student retention or student persistence. So we're interested in working with students who may be having challenges. By the way, this generation has a lot of challenges with mental health, feelings of homesickness, and those kinds of things. So we're stepping up that kind of support. Most of it is coming through an organization on campus known as CAPE, which is the Center for Academic and Professional Experience. And they've taken responsibility for retention. It's under the direction of Dr. Stephanie Johnson, who is also now Dean and Director of CAPE and is a professor of education. And she's brought a numbers-oriented, data-driven approach so that rather than tracking retention and taking snapshots at particular periods of time and determining who's there and who's not there, and maybe, I guess I'll put it this way, chasing students after they've made the decision to leave when it's really pretty much a done deal. Instead, we're identifying students and meeting their needs up front. So it's a dynamic model. It's a living model. And that way we can get to them and provide them with the kind of support, services, whatever it is. If they're having challenges with depression or academics or finances, they don't know how they're going to pay for next semester, we can help deal with that up front. So I'm really hopeful. That's one of the newer initiatives that that's in place for this year under Stephanie's leadership. I'll also mention that we have hired a new dean of students who will be in charge of campus life. And campus life encompasses a number of different things. Her name is Jacqueline Saronen. She is what's known in academia as ABD, all but dissertation. So she will be Dr. Saronen in a few months. She comes from Heidelberg University in Ohio, where she's been in student life for a number of years. We're very excited to have her. She will be responsible for student activities, the student judicial system, a liaison to our campus health center, the residence hall program, campus safety, and our personal counseling program. And she'll also be working pretty closely with Stephanie on student retention. Some of you may be aware that we're gearing up for a visit from an evaluation team from the Middle States Commission on Higher Education. If you're not aware, Middle States, MSCHE, is responsible for accrediting all institutions of higher education in the Middle Atlantic states. So that's New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. They include Washington, D.C., and for some reason they threw Puerto Rico in. So I'm not sure why that's considered part of the middle states, but it is. And they send a group of peer evaluators to campus once every 8 years and determine whether the school is in compliance with Middle States standards. Middle States has 7 accreditation standards, and we are just about finished with our draft report that's been prepared under the direction of Dr. Mitch Lewis, professor of English, and Dr. Patricia Ireland, who's our provost. They're taking the leadership, but it's had input from across campus. And we will be submitting that draft report to the evaluation team chair. The evaluation team chair is Dr. Jonathan Green from Susquehanna University. He'll be coming to campus on November 20th, having read the draft. He'll give us some feedback. We will rewrite the report, make sure the Board of Trustees sees it, that it has input from the entire campus community, that people are aware of what it says, that it really includes things that we have assessed about ourselves and where we can improve. And then we send it to the evaluation team, who will come in March. And on this campus visit, they will have read the report and they'll be checking to see if what's happening on campus matches what the report says. They'll be looking for evidence. They'll be asking people, well, it says here that you've got this great CAPE program that supports students. What's the evidence that it's really working? And by the way, what's your real impression of it here on campus? And so they want to see that the oral discussions they have and group meetings actually link up with what they're reading in the report. They then, I know this is long, but it's important for everyone to know what happens with Middle States. They then will write a report and recommend to Middle States that we are in compliance, or there are some areas that we need to improve on, and they'll list those areas and let folks know, let Middle States know what they think should be improved. Middle States then gives us an official word on what our accreditation will be, and that happens in June. So that will be in June of 2025. And so it's a really involved process, lots of people, but it's a way not just to check boxes and try to do the minimum. It's a way to truly assess the institution and make it better. And that's in line with what we're trying to do with our strategic plan. You may have heard that I appointed about a dozen working groups this past summer to accelerate aspects of the strategic plan. We know it's a challenging environment out there, and while we've made significant improvements in advancement and in admissions, enrollment, we know that we've got to do even better. And so we have identified some new revenue sources, some things that we want to support going forward that will attract and retain students. One of them you'll be hearing about in the near future is a pep band, which performed for the first time a couple weeks ago when we had the ribbon cutting at the new field. And we're also looking at a dance program and some other things. So those are particular areas of emphasis that we are looking, that will generate more students and additional revenue. We're also looking at ways to be more effective and efficient in our administration. So Elmira College has been around since 1855. And if you know anything about small private colleges, they tend to be idiosyncratic and quirky, sometimes in a fun way. But we need to look at the institution and say, what are the critical outcomes that we really want to support? And then ask ourselves the question, what are the inputs that support those things? And then ultimately, how do we arrange our administration on campus to maximize that output? So it's asking that kind of question. So that's on the table right now. We're still discussing it. We're looking at what programs, and I'm talking administrative programs, are effective. How can we work better together? I can tell you that we've already determined that many of the efficiencies on campus are related to software. So maybe I'll end with a couple of statements. First, Jan and I, in very late June, moved into TPH, moved into the president's home. And we are now living in the traditional place where Elmira College presidents have lived for many years. It took a while to getting used to this place that has 7 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms, but we managed somehow. So we've had a lot of fun. And it was particularly fun that I'd say for Mountain Day, when the students came over to sing, we weren't sneaking in the back door and pretending that we live here. We actually do live here now. And the most important thing is it's allowed us to participate much more completely in campus life. And that's been a lot of fun. So I've covered a lot of waterfront. This isn't supposed to be just about me talking, but I wanted to talk about those things and then give a pause, and maybe we can move to Q&A. So thanks for listening.
You forgot to mention, President Lindsay, that you have great neighbors now too.
Oh, yes. Our backyard, right beyond our backyard is Sydney's house. So we keep an eye on her and she keeps an eye on us.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the updates. Reminder to submit any questions in the chat, and we'll get to as many as we can tonight. If we can't cover any, feel free to shoot us an email at alumni@elmira.edu, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. We'll start with some pre-submitted questions. We had several questions related to enrollment, President Lindsay. Can you share information on the Take Flight program and how that impacted enrollment?
I didn't mention Take Flight specifically, but it had a major impact on this increase in enrollment. We started that program last year. It's focused on students, giving students from lower income families access to an Elmira College education, essentially families that earn $50,000 or less. We are not spending more money to do that. There have been some very generous alum who've stepped up and provided some support for those students. But for the most part, if you have a student from the state of New York and you take their TAP money and add it to their federal Pell Grant, that equals on average what we collect in tuition. So it's about repackaging the financial aid that we already have, but it put us on the radar in a way that we hadn't been before and allowed us to penetrate new markets. So we have students from high schools that we've never had before. And I'm sorry, I don't know the specific number, but I think it's 44 students who are on campus right now who are part of the Take Flight initiative.
Perfect. Can you talk about the proposed change in the reunion, moving it from June to September?
Sure. I do know that there's been a lot of concern out there about that. We did consult with the alumni board, and there was a survey that went out. We took lots of feedback about it. There were some people who were interested in coming back to reunion at a time when students would be on campus. They were complaining that, all right, we're here in June, but there's no students, so we don't get the vibrancy that's on campus. So that's one of the reasons for moving to the fall. That was part of the reason. Another reason is that in June, while it's not true for New York State, a number of our neighboring states, including Pennsylvania, public education is not out yet. And so they weren't able to attend reunion yet because they'd be going to a high school graduation. So we're trying this as a new approach to see if we can make the campus experience a different and more effective one.
Thank you. We had a question about how to become an underwing mentor. Would you be able to answer to that, President Lindsay?
I can say some general things about it, and I'm sorry I didn't mention it before. There is a program that alumni can volunteer for where they can mentor current undergraduate students. And we already have a number of people who volunteered and students that have signed up for it. And it promises to be a great way that alum can connect with current undergraduates and talk about what you do for a living, talk about what's made a difference in your life, and lend a helping hand to undergraduates. I don't know if Paula Lee is on the call, but she may have one or two things to share about that if she is.
I'm here, Chuck. Good evening, everybody. Paula Lee Hobson, Vice President for Institutional Advancement and Alumni Engagement. We are piloting 25 students this fall. Those students have already been nominated by a faculty member or staff member or a coach. They are undergoing some training with CAPE, which is again our colleagues in career services. Then we'll be having an etiquette dinner. So before we even match them with an alum, they will be polished and ready to go and have informational interviews. You can conduct alumni mentoring from anywhere in the world via Zoom. We also hope to have the alumni mentors offer job shadow opportunities, internship opportunities, community engagement opportunities. But these students, I've met with several of them just because they wanted to be matched sooner, and they are bright and funny and inquisitive, and they're all seniors this fall. Then we will be adding 50 new students in the spring, and then taking it up to 100 students next fall. So our goal is to be able to offer this to any junior or senior who is interested in doing it. It's not a required program. Many of our programs already have, nursing education being two classic examples. They already have externship opportunities, but we wanted to give this a try. I've done it at 2 prior institutions, and the initial excitement from the students has just been amazing. So if you'd like to become an alumni mentor, reach out to either Sydney or I. Will connect you in our software program that we already owned, Alumni Fire. And Sydney, I believe we have more than 300 alumni who've already raised their hand. It would be marvelous to get another 300. So if you're interested, please let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you, Polly. President Lindsay, could you provide a breakdown of the students, where they're from? Do we have any international students on campus right now?
We do have international students on campus, quite a few from South America and Europe. That's related to our sports programs to some extent, and Canada, of course, which might be related to our hockey programs. I'm not sure. There are 12 countries and 15 states represented in the student body. There's really quite a diversity. And I should say that one of the driving factors to having students from all over the country is our Bachelor of Science to DO, Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine degree that we have in conjunction with LECOM, where a student is simultaneously accepted to medical school at LECOM, right down the street, and to Elmira College, and they don't have to take the MedCat qualifying exam. It's been very popular. So we have a student in that program from North Carolina, from Oregon, from Arizona, from Colorado, etc.
We had a few more questions related to reunion. Vice President Hobson, maybe you could take one of the questions for us. Where will people be staying and what would be happening at the same time as reunion? And as you're answering this, Vice President Swain will be popping in our frequently asked question link about reunion into the chat in case you have any other additional questions about reunion.
So in terms of where they'll be staying, many of our survey respondents indicated that they're not really interested in staying on campuses, on our campus. Some would like to. So for those who would like to, we've been working with local area hotels to say that they could stay and receive a Elmira College discount if they wish to stay on campus. Right now, we would be offering Tompkins Hall is open and available for any guests, that there's no students in Tompkins at this time. What was the second part of the question, Sydney, besides housing?
What else is happening during reunion? What other events? Octagon Fair?
Yep, so it would be a parent and family weekend, and Octagon Fair would be happening simultaneously with our strong support from our good colleagues in Student Life. They would be running portions of it. And as we did this year, Octagon Fair, as Sydney said at the top of the hour, very successful, and would be looking to duplicate this year's efforts.
And I should point out that in the chat, thank you for that, Paula Lee. I should point out in the chat that Dennis is keeping me honest, and it's actually the statistics are far better in terms of the number of states and countries. What I was citing was for the incoming students, but overall, the student body is 40 different states represented and 25 countries. So thank you for keeping me honest, Dennis.
What is the status of the speech and hearing program?
Speech and hearing program, two things. We actually had an enrollment dip a couple of years ago, which we were very concerned about. But we now have an uptick in the number of students interested in, it's now called CSD, Communication Sciences and Disorders. We're looking strongly at the possibility of adding a master's program on top of the CSD undergraduate program. You probably know that you can't be certified at the undergraduate level. So while our students have an advantage in that they can work in the on-campus clinic and get lots of experience, you can't go out with a bachelor's degree and start working as in the profession. So they need to go to a master's degree. And we're thinking that we would have a one-year master's program where some of their undergraduate credits would count toward the master's program. They would get out and be certified. There's a lot of study that has to be done over this next year to see if that is something we can really do. But we have secured some funding to do the analysis.
Okay, are many of the Take Flight students first generation college going? If so, what particular steps are being taken to ensure their success?
They're not necessarily first generation, but certainly first generation are, I would characterize them, first of all, as a very intelligent group. It's incorrect to think that if they are in need of financial assistance, that maybe they have some significant academic needs. They tend to be the more talented students. Now, that said, for any student who is first generation and other students from different backgrounds who aren't used to the idea of being on a residential campus and maybe even being away from home, we're really making sure that we know our students, and we're the size campus and people here care enough about the students as individuals that we do know them. And one of the chief ways is through the CAPE program that I was mentioning before with Stephanie Johnson. Another way is through the residence life staff, the RAs, and others who work in the field who are in touch with exactly what's going on with the students. And let me tell you, there's a lot going on with the students.
Great. Another question that was submitted ahead of time. As many colleges have committed to a goal of carbon neutrality, what is Elmira's plan for environmental sustainability?
Well, first, I'd say that environmental sustainability is part of our strategic plan. So part of the plan talks about what we're dedicated to doing there. We have hired someone who is going to be giving focus to the environmental science and sustainability program and working with student scholars on projects across campus. So we've hired an employee who's going to be providing focus there under the direction of faculty. We also have held 3 climate teach-ins in the past 3 years, and we'll be holding the 4th one this coming March. And that has attracted about 400 people from the community, from campus, where we focus on efforts and initiatives and what can be done in the Southern Tier, in this region, and actually on campus. A particular project that I can mention out of the ones that we're talking about is that we have secured funding and are putting up some of our own funds to put energy efficient lighting in all the residence halls. That's a grant from NYSEG, New York State Energy, I forget what they're called, but NYSEG, and that'll be happening in the coming months. Energy and gas.
Perfect. When and where will you be in the Buffalo area?
Well, I'm not going to reveal where I'm going to be, but I will be, Jan and I will be visiting Buffalo, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. And there is a former member of the Board of Trustees that we're going to be having dinner with on Friday. And we're going to go from there. That's what I'll say.
Perfect. We haven't received any additional questions in the chat, so I think we are good to close for the night, President Lindsay, unless you have anything additional to say.
Well, I would just say that I really enjoy these sessions because while it's not like being in person, it's a chance to connect with you all. And we had an athletic Hall of Fame last weekend, and that was another opportunity to connect with alum and hear about some of the exciting things that have been happening on campus over the years. I learned about some things that, well, were kind of scary, but sounds like people have been having a lot of fun at Elmira College for years. So I'll just leave it at that.
When I was walking to the event, I heard a story about gallons of soap being put into the fountain, and I just decided not to listen anymore after that.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think that's something we want to be spreading around campus. I will say that some of the funnest things on campus, not only when alum come, but when I get to connect with students. When Jana and I were at the Lindsay games 2 nights ago, and we got up to leave, when one of the students said, "See you later, Poek." And if you can't figure it out, Poek is president of Elmira College. So, you know, I guess I have a nickname, sort of like POTUS, you know?
Love it. I think it's going to catch on. So we have a lot of events coming up. Make sure to tune in to the Alumni Link monthly newsletter so you know what's coming up, both on campus and off, as well as all of the exciting updates happening on campus. Hope everyone has a good night, and we will get this recording out in the next Alumni Link newsletter.